In the middle, we have Gil from Mondelez, which is a great company that has some brands like Nabisco, like Cadbury's, my personal favorite, Oreos. Yeah, where he's the global director of innovation. So what do you think are the biggest trends that are impacting your company?
I mean, I think, I always like to start with the consumer, and let's talk about what we think is manufactured, but actually with consumers. And I think the biggest trend that I see happening, and it's been happening for a while, is I think every consumer is becoming a food expert these days. Everybody's a nutritionist. So, I work in the food industry for 14 years or 15 years. I think a few years ago, until 5 years ago, nobody used to talk about food. Today, everywhere I go, somebody lectures me about what are the biggest food trends, which kind of diet I should eat, what should I eat, why I should eat it. I have friends, I invite them to barbecue, nobody shows up because none of them don't want to eat meat anymore. These guys 5 years ago had endless amount of meat, now they all stop eating meat. So that's for me the biggest trend shaping up. I think another way to indicate it in a data-driven way is, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the hashtag called food porn. I don't want any of the guys to get excited. We're not talking about porn, we're talking about food porn. And I don't know if anybody knows in the audience what food porn is. Food porn is when consumers take pictures of their food. And that's also a phenomenon that exists for a few years. I mean, if you look at Facebook, Instagram, people are taking pictures from morning to night of what they eat. They take more pictures of food than of their kids. And actually, food porn, if you track it, I think in 2017, I think it was more than 150 million times used as a hashtag. So that shows you people are uber engaged with food, much more than ever before. And for us, I think, that trickles down to everything everybody in this room does. Food is top of mind for people. And we need to start becoming even bigger experts because our consumers are really experts, or they think they're experts.
Right.
So for me, that's the number one trend.
Was there any trends out there that surprised you?
I mean, I think, there's a lot of things that shows up in other segments. It starts coming to food. I mean, historically, food has been a bit behind in a lot of the things. So I think, like it was said before, and I would agree with it, I think although we are data-driven organizations, we have used data for very specific things. Data was always in the Department of Market Research, and that's it. And today, you start seeing large companies in the food industry start saying, how do we bring big data and kind of artificial intelligence into the whole food supply chain? Is it from manufacturing to R&D to better projecting what we're going to develop? So I think that's a big, and you know what? A lot of us, we don't even have the skill sets for that. We don't even have the right people. We don't have the right partnerships. And that requires a change. So I think that's another one. It has been very, I think, we just had a team meeting for the kind of top 200 people in Mondelez. I think we had it in February in London from around the world. And it was very interesting. I mean, I work in innovation, so I try to track what's happening around the world. But we had a guest speaker from Google teaching us what is artificial intelligence. The space of well-being and health and wellness is growing phenomenally well. But actually, if you look at a lot of the brands that have succeeded, the huge success stories we hear in the States, Kind Bars, Chobani, a lot of case studies, if you follow their growth rate at the beginning, they start very small. They start as a seeding, or RX bar, or whatever that is. They start selling it in a gym. You have a few years until they scale up. So, we, for example, launched in the US a fantastic product in the health and wellness space called Veya. It's kind of like a snack, very healthy. I don't know if you've seen it, trying to compete with some of your products. Unfortunately, we didn't succeed too much, so maybe you didn't notice that. But, we launched Veya. It's a fantastic bundle. We launched it in the health and wellness alternative channels. So we wanted to act a bit like the little ones. But then we wake up after a few months and we say, wow, this is, after 12 months, the thing is only $10, $15 million. Now, exactly like the point you made, we're a $30 billion company. The algorithm is so big. We need to grow so much that if we don't hit within 2-3 years the kind of $200, $300 million mark in 3 years, it's not worth the company's effort, the investment. And the company then doesn't have that. Now, it might be that we reach year 4 or 5, but we don't have the patience a lot of times. So what I've seen is in the spaces that are not in our mainstream areas, again, giving the example of an Oreo or a Milka chocolate, that whatever you put out there, if it's a good product with good marketing, it's going to do well. Things that are in the periphery that are growing, but they're still they have a different growth projection and you're using different brands that are less known, you need to wait more. I know Pepsi had the same, I used to work in Pepsi in the past, it was the same debate always. And I think that's where we basically see the scale up takes very long. And a lot of times that's where we as big companies don't have patience, which is a shame. And that's where you need to maybe move sometimes to a different business model and put them in an incubation team and move them away from the day-to-day P&L, that the finance guys can't look at them and let it run for a while until it grows.
Right.
I think, I mean, from our end, I think, first of all, I think there's a lot of startups out there and very good startups. So I think actually, first of all, it requires us as big companies to shift the way we look at it. In the past, we kind of, all of us used to kind of do a favor to startups. We talk with them. I think we need to shift that today. Today, they're doing us a favor talking with us. And we need to start explaining startups, and I think that's on the industry at all, like, we need to start pitching to them. What, you know, why should you come to work with me and not with my great colleague here from Pepsi? What can I offer better than Pepsi? And I think that's the shift that we need to start doing. I think we're starting, you know, we're starting these discussions exactly trying to explain that in our organization, that mind shift. I think that can go a long way, and I think it can help, first of all, the companies get better startups coming to them, and I think it can make it a more equal discussion. So I think that's number one. I think the second point on the startups end, I think for me it's a very simple thing. I think startups need to do research on the company and see if what they have to offer fulfills a pain point for that company. We all have pain points. We all have a lot of similar pain points. You know, you mentioned sustainability, we have others, but then every company has its specifics. You know, we're the biggest chocolate company in the world. Cocoa, there's a lot of issues with cocoa around the world. Commodity cost, cocoa tree, is there going to be enough cocoa in the world? So I think that's a specific problem for Mondelez or maybe the other two chocolate companies in the world. That won't be a problem for PepsiCo, for example. So I think startups need to do that research. I think what turns us off a lot of times is when, you know, a startup takes a bit of a spray and pray approach of pretty much reaching out to every big company they know, and actually they discover, you know what, they pitched to me something about beverages, and they actually figure out we don't have a beverage. So I think that's the kind of research at the startup. I would expect a startup to you know, a founder to do that research. But I would say if they can come to us with a proposition, if they've done their research to a real pain point, I think they're going to have a red carpet. I mean, we have big pain points, and if somebody comes with that, I think we'll be very open to talk with them.
So what was the most creative, best startup pitch you saw? What did they do to make them stand out? Can you think of any?
Good question. I mean, I think there's a lot of very interesting things happening. It's not a specific company, but, you know, I'm a big fan of personalized nutrition and where that's going. I think there's a lot of interesting things in microbiome. There's a company in Israel, Day 2. I think DSM and Givaudan did a partnership with Mix Fit, if I'm pronouncing Rob correctly, the name, yeah. I've not seen the product, but I find that space very interesting. I think the business model has not been sorted out, but I very much think that's part of the future. I think you said rightfully, I think that's part of the challenge. We've all built is huge scale, big companies that make millions of same Oreo cookies or Pepsi bottles, but actually the trend is people want unique things and specialized things for them, for their health, lifestyle, health and wellness, nutrition. And we as big companies are going to need over the next few years to start figuring out how do we keep this big machine working, but actually have some agility and flexibility into it. So there are some interesting companies running around in that space.